Hello there, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. It's me, your resident friendly favourite, Furbolg, and today I'm joined by a very special guest on the podcast. But 3 things before we start. The first one being that the sound on this is going to be a bit weird because I'm doing it in a very different style with a very different setup. So you may hear the sound going in and out for a bit. We're getting used to it. Second of all, the next 2 things are quite big, so sorry about that, and heavy. So the second thing that I want to talk to you about is the fact that some of you have noticed that Leon is no longer a part of the Pod of Many Things. That is because he is no longer a part of the Pod of Many Things. Unfortunately, his work commitments and stuff have made it so that he is unable to participate. Obviously, I wish him all the best, and I'll have him back on as soon as he wishes to, a bit like with Troy. However, for now, it's just me and any guests I can find. And because I really enjoy doing this, and I want to keep making friends and talking to people about cool stuff, cool nerdy things. So the third one is a bit more serious. I've gone in degrees of seriousness. This podcast may involve topics that are triggering, so this is your trigger warning. We are going to be talking about things like baby loss, stillbirth, neonatal treatment, and fetal health and stuff like that, which are quite traumatizing events for people. Hopefully we won't be on them for too long, but they are part of this story, because today I'm very proud and very happy to announce that today's podcast guest is my wife and love of my life, Jennifer. Say hi to the people, Jennifer.
Hello, people.
So, Jen and I have been together for, I'm going to say, 11 years. 11 years, and we've been married for almost 2. Oh, no, 2. So, we've been married for 2 years. So, Jen, why don't you tell the people how we met, and before we get into our today's topic about, like, dating your DM or being married to a dungeon master. How did we meet?
How much of the story do the people need to know?
Just the initial bit, and how we got together, how we first met, and then when you realised you were deeply, madly in love with me.
Addison was in a band when we were at sixth form, and they were playing a show at his school, and I wanted to go. A few of my friends were going, and Ad was the man with the ticket. So we were on a university trip, like on a uni open day with our sixth form, and I stood behind him whilst he spoke, and I believe without taking a breath for the longest time until I got fed up and tugged on the back of his hoodie for him to turn around and look straight over the top of my head.
You are short. Like, that's not very fair. I'm 6'4" and you're what, 5'2" and a half?
Like, so Addison turned around, looked straight over the top of me before going, "Oh, you're down there." And there was an awkward exchange of money and things. But weren't drugs, I promise.
For tickets to my gig, yeah.
Just sort of went on from there, I guess. We started, like, chatting and whatnot. Addison dated one of my friends first.
Oh, wow. Okay. Like, this is true. But now, that we were 17 when we first met?
Yeah.
And now we are 28 years old. So that's been a long time. It's been a long time to be together.
Yeah, I thought I'd point it out. It just seems like, I suppose a lot of people do just start talking randomly.
Yeah.
But
this was before the age of, like, Tinder and everything, though, so.
When no one talks.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, I went to that show. We met up a few times afterwards, and we've been together ever since, really.
Yeah, we've been together ever since. You've known me through uni when I got back into comic books. You used to come into comic book stores with me, and that was pretty funny. Like,
just that one time.
Just that one time.
That one time in Sheffield, there were 2 little weirdos following us around. There's no other. I can't be polite about it. That's as polite as it gets. Because it was unsettling. I've never wanted to be in a place less than that. Because they were following us around, and one pointed out to the other, "He's got a girlfriend."
Yeah. And I think it's because we were actually talking about things as well that made it even more like...
Yeah.
Like, you showed an interest in, like, comics and stuff just because I was interested in them. Not because you were interested in them, like, at all, really. You were like, oh, I know this one.
Yeah.
Like,
this is cute.
Yeah. So, yeah, they So yeah, I've told that story on the podcast before, but I think it's very, I love you so much, and the fact that you're just like two little weirdos. But yeah, so that's how we met. You've known me through uni. You've known me when I got my first job. You've known me through training to be a teacher. And we've had multiple trials and tribulations, but we're still here. And now you are officially, as a player, married to a dungeon master. How does that make you feel when I put it like that?
Sounds kind of weird.
It does sound kind of seedy, doesn't it?
But it's all I've ever known, isn't it? Really, you were playing and DMing before I was ever involved.
Yeah. So what I wanted to get into first was to talk about like when I first started getting into D&D. And when I mentioned like this thing called Dungeons and Dragons to you for the first time, like, and how, because I kind of got, for you, because we weren't living together at the time when I first got into it, I was still living at my parents' house and you were still living it. It just seemed to come out of nowhere that I really liked this thing. And I go through like obsessive phases, I understand that. But this is one thing that seemed to like stick. Like, so what did you think when we were first like, when I first said, oh yeah, I'm playing Dungeons and Dragons like at work and stuff like that?
Did you start doing that at work before we were living together?
Yeah.
I don't think I really paid it much notice. It was something you did, funnily enough, you started online. You were playing with friends out in Canada online. You were watching Critical Role.
Yep.
And I just had absolutely no interest in that until we were living together. And I'm pretty sure even when we were first living together, because they were still playing campaign 1 when we moved in. I've never watched. I will say I have never watched any of campaign 1 because
just wasn't something you were interested in.
Yeah, and at the time I just thought this goes on for so long.
That is true.
Why?
That is true. And now we devote actual time. We timetable it into our lives. Yeah, because we can't miss it. But yeah, no. So you didn't really pay any attention.
Yeah, it just wasn't whatever. It wasn't something I was even remotely fussed about. It was something that you did that didn't really affect me when you were first into it. Fair
enough. So what made you like sit up and pay attention then? What was the first thing that made you go, oh, this is a thing that he does and it affects it's something that affects our lives? Because I will admit I have to devote a lot of time to it and stuff like that. So what made you like kind of do that meerkat thing where you like rose up and like started looking around?
Perhaps once we were living together and I realised how much time and how much money you were putting into it. Not that I gatekeep what money you can spend, that's your money. Like we both have our separate accounts that we have our money in, and then our joint account to pay for all the things that we got to pay for as a couple. So what's yours is yours. But it was, when you notice like you're buying different books, you're buying dice, you're buying minis. Yeah. And when we're out in places and you're looking for books and you're looking for dice and you're looking for minis and this is a thing. And you were still playing with the boys when we first moved in together. Yeah. When we were first in the flat. Yeah. And while I was first pregnant.
Yeah. So I was still playing with Adam, Matt, and Mike.
And that used to take up a lot of time.
You were not happy.
Of a weekend.
You were not happy some days because obviously with my job.
Yeah. I'm sure you will know, is a teacher. So he is out all day. I mean, obviously when I'm working, I'm out all day. But we're out all day, we come home, we have dinner, we go to bed, we're tired. So to then devote so much time of a weekend to something, I sound terrible because I'm thinking like it's something that I wasn't necessarily a part of. So you'd sit there with your headphones on in another room, maybe with the door shut, and I'd be a bit like, oh, well, this is lonely.
Yeah, and I can imagine that it is for like couples, like when one person plays and one person doesn't, like it can become quite lonely. I think that's why a lot of time was devoted to me trying to convince you to play, and that wasn't easy, admittedly, because you did for a while harbour quite ill feelings towards D&D because of what we went through together. So,
but I had played once before then,
and that was not great, was it?
No. When we played at the house, like at the flat with Tom and Ash when they came down from uni.
Yeah. Or not uni, or from their lives. Ash was at uni, but...
Wasn't Tom still doing his masters?
Oh, he might have been, yeah. Got you.
But whatever, they'd come home for Christmas and they came and stayed with us and we had a drink. And Addison set up a one-shot and I ummed and ahed. I let them start. I wasn't going to play. I let them start. I was sleeping in the corner of our room.
Yeah.
Like in the corner of our living room while the three boys were playing. And I like caught wind of what was going on and they took a break and I woke up. And I was like, oh, actually, like, can I join in?
I love this because I did literally just have a character ready for you.
Addison had rolled up a character that was like so me as well, really.
Yeah, because...
But I think you did that purposefully.
Yeah.
You made a character that was very me.
Yeah, so
that I didn't find it hard. Because obviously I, even now, do find it hard to roleplay.
Yeah.
It's something that I'm not completely comfortable with.
Yeah, and that makes sense. Like, not everybody... You're quite shy. Like, you're not shy with your opinions, but to open up to people in general. Like...
You make me sound like an asshole.
But, like, that's what one of the things I love about you is, like, how, like, forthright you are and honest you are. Like, and... I do love the fact that sometimes you try and hide things with you try and hide how you feel, but your face is just like, yeah, no. Like, so when I first started playing, like, online, like, you were like, no, it's fine.
It's fine, but...
your face was like, yeah, like... So,
absolutely seething.
Yeah. So it's not that you're an arsehole, it's just the fact that that's how it was, and that's the truth of the matter, isn't it? And, like, you played that game. How did that game make you feel when you played that? Because that was, like, one of my first... one-shots. It wasn't well... I know it wasn't well executed, but how did you...
But we all had a good time.
Yeah.
And I think it's because none of us had ever played before. Like, I'd never played, Tom and Ash had never played before.
Yeah.
So it was just us, like, exploring what you do as a hobby.
Yeah.
And, like, yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. And then, not too long after that, because you were still playing with boys, weren't you, at that time?
Mm-hmm.
Because I wasn't pregnant with Clark quite. Yeah, so you carried on playing. I don't know when you started going to the club.
So I started going to the club a little bit before you were pregnant with Clark, or whilst you were pregnant with Clark.
It was whilst I was pregnant, but I'm not sure
because I went
when.
with like Kai and Julie, and I was playing with another guy who's just had a little girl, I think. What's his name? Rob. He had a really cool name. He's and he looked really cool. But yeah, so that was when I first made Ramp, the world that I played it with other people, and I first met our friend Callum in that point. But then obviously we got to that point with Clark, and we got to the point where we found out that things weren't going to work out with Clark, and that he was very poorly and very ill, and that's when I had to stop going, wasn't it? Because of the fact that
You stopped going whilst we were going through the process. So obviously we lost our son. We went to our 20-week scan and found out that he was very unwell. And doctors straight away threw around the phrase incompatible with life. And they sent us up and down the country
even. Like, we had to...
County. I'm pretty sure...
We went to Leicester, which is outside our county, isn't it? Leicestershire.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, yeah, up and down...
And Nottingham we went to.
Yeah, I'm thinking they're all still technically
they're
the Midlands.
they're near us, yeah. But
yeah, I didn't mean to say county, but yeah, like the general region.
Yeah.
So yeah, different hospitals in Leicester, Nottingham, seeing different specialists, having different tests and scans. In the fetal health department in our hospital at Kettering. And like this went on for like 3 weeks, and in this time Addison and I were due to get married.
Yeah.
Addison and I were due to get married in June 2018, and we had to postpone because we'd got the news that we were going to lose our baby.
Yeah.
And after sitting down with a neurospecialist, she explained that it really was worst case scenario, and if I was to go to term, we probably would have lost him in utero anyway, and if not, he would have been born and been in pain due to the nature of his condition, where he had like a severe neural tube defect. So when people have spina bifida, the bottom of their spine doesn't fuse properly.
It's almost like a zip, isn't it? That doesn't
it doesn't close at the bottom. But our son had an encephalous seal, so his hadn't fused at the top, and it was discovered that around 70% of his brain was growing in a sac, protruding from the base of his neck.
Yeah, and we had to make a lot of hard and tough decisions, like whether we wanted to end the pregnancy or we wanted to go to term, or because of how far along you were going to have to
deliver him
naturally.
I had what's now known as a compassionate induction, so we had to have a really difficult conversation between ourselves, with our family, and decide that for his sake it was better that my pregnancy was ended.
Yeah, and we
because he would have if he'd have been born alive, he would have been born in pain.
And that pretty much put our lives on hold for a little bit. I wasn't going to work, and I was training to be a teacher at that time. I was still I hadn't even qualified.
You were at the arse end of your qualification. Yeah,
and I thought I wasn't going to graduate with all my friends, didn't I? Because of the fact that I'd missed a lot of important points, like
deadlines for things.
Yeah, because of the fact that I'd made them aware, but I just couldn't make it, and that. If you can imagine that, something as important as that, my career was on hold, my D&D life was on hold. I wasn't really doing anything. We were just waiting for things to happen. That's how it felt to me anyway. It was almost like waiting for.
And I suppose for all that time, we'd already been told straight away at that initial scan that did not look good.
Yeah.
And that our specialist said we don't think this pregnancy will survive. So it was waiting for the inevitable.
Yeah. And
waiting 3 weeks for it.
Yeah, we waited a month, which did have some. I know this is going to sound strange, but it did have some positives, because it meant that we could register him, and he could have a name and stuff.
He would have got his name anyway, but we were able to register his stillbirth, so there's official recognition that he existed.
Yeah, without going into too many details, because we know it's a distressing topic. We got to hold him and stuff like that, because he was kind of big enough to do that with, and stuff like that, and it was very
it was hard.
It was very hard, and that put our wedding, my qualification, which luckily I was able to pass on the same year because my tutors liked me, I guess, D&D and stuff, and the club kept inviting me back, but because I was just such a mess, really.
It didn't take you too long to go back, though.
But the thing was that people invited me during and stuff like that, and during that time, and I just couldn't go and face anybody. But it was nice to have that community, the D&D community, there helping us and caring for us, I guess. You hadn't met many of them yet.
I hadn't met any of them, I don't think, before we had Clark.
No, and it wasn't till afterwards that you came to the club a couple of times.
I think I came once, a month or so after Clark was born, and it was fine. I just felt very overwhelmed.
Yeah,
I didn't know if it was the place for me, and as Addison has alluded to, D&D became a point of contention for us.
Yeah,
because I was so unwell and nothing was being done about it yet. Following losing Clark, it felt to me like Addison was out at work all day, every day. He'd then come home and just be talking to his new D&D friends, and then he'd piss off all day on a Sunday.
Yeah, pretty much. And
I was just expected to sit there and wait for him, is what it felt like.
Yeah, and we kind of had to deal with that, and I tried to, and that, I think that first time that you went was me trying to show you that
it wasn't like that.
Yeah, it, and we both dealt with it in very different ways. I will admit that I did jump into D&D and was yo, I'm gonna go back and play games and try and go back to normality and try and function in something, whereas you were a bit more insular, you wanted.
Yeah, I couldn't. I didn't leave our flat for months.
No.
Unless I had to, and usually if I did leave the flat, I was either with Addison and I wasn't going anywhere where anyone was going to talk to me, or I'd walk across town to my parents' house.
Mm.
How long did it take me to go in the shop?
Oh yeah, that took you a while because you just genuinely didn't want to talk to people. And
people that know me, like I've lived in this town for God knows how long. People know me. People that work in the shops know me. They all knew I was expecting. I didn't want to have to go in there and see pity on their faces. And I became like, I wasn't well. No,
you weren't well, and you were like taking it out on anyone and anything, not just me and D&D, but like you just weren't happy. And then I was, like you said, pissing off to go play D&D with, I think at that time Rachel was coming to get me, wasn't she?
Yeah.
And like you seeing me like having some form of normalcy with other people, and I think you felt a bit
left behind. Yeah. I thought you were gonna go.
Yeah, and like that wasn't the case, because then like I showed you and you kind of got it, like, but it wasn't for you then.
No, I still felt really overwhelmed by it, and everyone was so lovely. Like Steve and Lindsay that were running the club at the time.
Yeah.
They had nothing but time for me.
Yeah, they were great.
I know they spent a lot of time encouraging you and trying to encourage me to be involved only when I was ready to be. And it took me another 9 months after that initial visit. We did go to went to someone's house.
Yeah.
And played. And two of those people became like really good friends of ours.
Yeah, Zach and Luke did.
Zach and Luke. But on that initial thing, that was the first experience I've ever had of someone else DMing for me that wasn't you. Yeah. But only the second time I'd ever played.
Yeah.
I came to know very quickly that Zach does create obnoxious characters.
Oh, yeah.
But that was my first, like, experience of that. And I'm not going to lie to you, I came away from the table at first wanting to knock his teeth out.
I remember how angry you were, because I can't remember what happened, but everybody like got up from the table and me and you were like just sat there.
I was like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, you like wanted to go home, you were not happy.
And that's terrible. Like, how long have we played with those two, like, since?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it was, yeah, so say we postponed our wedding. It wasn't until, had I spent any time with the D&D lot? When we went to Comic-Con.
When we went to Comic-Con, yeah.
So we went to Comic-Con in the October of 2018.
Yeah.
And that was like the third time I'd met Luke, who looked after me more than you did that day.
Yeah, sorry
Addison gets this thing where he sees things and it's shiny and he's excited.
Wow.
And I was still like really...
Yeah, I could have done that better because you were still very, like, afraid.
Afraid of everything.
Yeah.
And Addison kept just wandering off and leaving me behind, but it was Luke, bearing in mind he didn't know me very well, who was making sure that I was okay. Yeah. I was very, very grateful for him that day.
Yeah. Didn't help that the same person who DM'd for us and almost ruined your experience of D&D totally was also with us on that day and was just kind of throwing a strop the whole day.
Ruining that day as well.
Yeah, bless.
But, like, I'd started coming round to the idea. I'd said to you before that I was thinking about, maybe I will play.
Yeah, because you bought your first set of dice.
I bought my first set of dice that I bought for myself, and I still use them.
Yeah.
I still roll that D20 every week.
The Joker dice, right? The ones that look like
the green and purple ones.
Yeah, those are sick.
But yeah, I bought those there. But it was people that, obviously, you were DMing for them, but we met a couple of Addison's other friends, or had met Callum before when I'd been at the club. But we met Paige and Troy.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I'd ever met either of them. And you know when you meet people that you were just instantly drawn to? Mm-hmm. There was just something I liked so much about. They were so friendly and lovely. Like, feel like I spoke to Paige quite a lot.
Yeah. You did speak to Paige quite a lot, and Troy, and
as another fellow little peep.
Yeah, you and Paige were like our tiny titans, weren't you?
Yeah, but I know to say I bought my first set of dice, but even then I didn't start playing until after we got married. So Addison's lovely D&D friends came to our wedding.
Yeah, reception, didn't they?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, they were great.
And it was something. I've just got images of Callum burned into my brain from that night.
Wasn't he in a bush by the end of the night?
He was in some sort of state, love him.
Yeah, we're at like a 4-star hotel,
Yeah.
4-star hotel, and Callum
just had no idea. I remember Callum coming up to me with this drink, and I was like, the fuck's in that? And I'm pretty sure his response was something along the lines of, I don't know.
He was a mess. That little sesh gremlin, like...
Yeah, but, like, and Paige was, again... So you'd had them at the house before we got married. And this is how, like, afraid of it all I was. Addison would have them over, and I would go somewhere else that wasn't our home.
Yeah, I'd try.
Because I didn't want to feel in the way.
Yeah.
Like, you had them over to play.
Yeah.
And I wasn't involved, so I didn't want to sit here and be in the way. So I made my excuses, and I was gone before they were here.
Yeah. And even though I tried, like, no, you can stay, like, maybe you should watch, to hopefully get you in the spirit of it, it wasn't for you yet.
No. But Paige said something to me at our wedding, and I can't recall exactly what it was. But I then knew that I really wanted to be Paige's friend.
Mm.
And that I wanted to play D&D. That I would come and try and play D&D. I wanted to get to know these lovely people that were being so lovely.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting, like, to see, because it kind of, like, was like a snap. Like, you did suddenly go, well, I'm coming next week, right? And I was like, are you? Like, so we had to make you your first character, which was... Dara,
cleric,
your grave cleric with an oath bow.
I just loved her so much.
She was great, and we went through a campaign based in the Critical Role world of Taldore, and you basically helped chase down Raishan, who had been reincarnated into a human body. That was fun, and then more and more crazy stuff happened. And we came to an end with that campaign. Like, how did you feel about the club, like, during that time, though? Because there was a bit of like, tumultuous, like, relationships between people during that time because of politics, I guess. And, like, as someone on the outside looking in and someone brand new to it all,
that part of it was overwhelming, but when I first started playing and spending time with everyone, I think I found the same thing that you did, and it helped. Mm. And obviously I think my starting to play D&D, did it, like, align with this, like, my start of my therapy journey? Mm-hmm. I can't remember which came first.
I think therapy came first, and then you did, because I remember you talking about D&D with your therapist. You mentioned to me that you spoke to D&D about D&D to your therapist, and she kind of gave you the same look that you used to give me when you tried to explain it to her.
Yeah, so maybe I did start playing first, like, briefly, like, just before. Mm-hmm. And then that, along with the therapy, and then I realised that I was starting to feel better. Yeah. I was meeting different people and, like, getting to know the people that you'd come to, like, be so close to. And, like, I fell in love with the hobby. Not just the hobby, but I fell in love with all the people that were around us.
Yeah, because we had, what? We had me, you, Paige for a little bit, Troy, Tremwith, Rachel, Matt Vials,
Luke, P,
yeah. Handsome Luke P.
I don't know, like, everyone was just so warm and, like, welcoming to me. Mm. And then, like, they tried so hard to help me where I struggled so much with rules and what I could do, or even the concept of you can do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah. It did take you a while to get, like, your head around that. Like, you were like, what are the rules? And I was like, We'll get there.
You kept thinking, like, read your spells, know your spells. I don't know my spells. What the fuck can I do here? I still do that. Yeah. I've been playing for, like, nearly 2 years at this point. Yeah. And I still haven't got a Scoob, like. But I've been really well looked after and helped out by like the people that we're lucky enough to call our friends.
Yeah, I think so. I think we've been very lucky because those people came at a time in our lives when we
really, really did need them.
Yeah, and I think I've said on the podcast multiple times that I believe D&D saved our lives and our marriages, our marriage, because I went back to being normal, in air quotes, and like we had something to talk about other than what had happened to us, and like I was excited about something, you became excited about something, and eventually we grew to that point.
Yeah, and I think it just helped me like come out of my shell again, I guess, to find like new people that I was comfortable with. Like, I'm quite a tactile person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm touchy-feely. So it was nice to go somewhere on a Sunday and be met by Matt and by Troy, who would give me these great big hugs every week.
Yeah, definitely.
And be genuinely pleased to see me.
Yeah. I do think that was a big thing, like having people who wanted to see you, because when you're in those dark places, sometimes you don't believe that those people exist. You're like,
yeah,
nobody wants to see me, so I'm just going to hide. Like, that's how I was at first as well, when everything was going on. Then when I've finally decided, like, no, I don't want to miss out. And you said did the same thing. Like, I don't want to miss out. So yeah, that was interesting. Like, to see you like grow and come out of your shell,
but it wasn't without its flaws. Like, as you said, like there were politics, and I don't really want to go into it. I'm sure you've probably gone into it at some point.
Not really. We've like hinted at it, but there was like major.
And it just
major issues.
The club had come to be like a safe space, and it no longer felt very safe to be there.
Yeah.
And I felt uncomfortable, and I was going there to get away from how uncomfortable I felt most of the time.
Yeah.
So it stopped being somewhere I wanted to go.
Yeah.
And then that made me really sad because I missed people so much.
Mhm.
And I guess like now that we're in this like horrific space now where we can't see people, and we're so fortunate that we've got your Discord server and we play every week with our friends, but I miss them so much.
Yeah. No, I think that we all miss each other, like being around a table, and like even in your like relatively new state of the game, you can also attest to the fact that me and Leon always say that like playing in person is like 1,000 times better than playing online. It's
the social aspect of it when you're face to face with your friends, like, and it's not just they weren't just people that we saw on a Sunday. They were friends that we spoke to during the week, friends that we had come over to our house. Because that became like a semi-regular thing for us, where we'd have people come over and like play games and whatnot. Because we were friends, and we'd have a drink and we'd play games. Yeah. And that was what we did, because we were actually friends. Yeah. We are actually friends.
Yeah, definitely. And I think D&D is a unique thing that allows that to happen. Maybe because of the fact that as your characters, you kind of say, instead of saying like, so your first character was Dara.
Dara didn't do that. Like, it's always, do you remember that time I did that?
Yeah.
If you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, you make it personal.
Yeah.
No, I totally get that. Quick question though, before we like move on to like your favourite things about D&D and stuff like that. When you, because you've only really had like limited DM experience with myself, Troy, and Aaron, who you've made quite clear, and I've made quite clear that we weren't really happy with. So from the bloke that went home, was I a different person behind the DM screen or not? Did you because some people say that their partners change when they're like behind the DM screen and stuff like that, or like, was I different or did I act different?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I always remember the time that you, like, bawled me out in front of everybody.
Yeah, so our friends have seen me shout Addison down, like, stand up at the table and shout down it at him. Because I didn't agree with his bullshit choices.
Yeah, like, so...
And I can't even remember what it was, but I was so mad.
I don't remember what it was either.
I feel like you were trying to cheat me out of something, and I was like...
No, not having it.
That's bullshit, and I'm not going to take it.
So yeah, so obviously you don't think I'm like this all-powerful deity. My power trip is ruined because of the fact that you are willing to, like, shout me down and, like, row with me about things, which not in like a like malicious way, just like in like heat of the moment sort of thing. Because then we don't remember it, so it obviously wasn't that big a deal. Like,
no, but it shook everyone.
I think because of the fact that they'd never seen me, like, back down, or, like, they'd never seen me, like... I
don't think they'd seen me get as angry as that either. I think that might have been the first time. They've obviously seen me get angry quite a lot now. I'm quite an angry little person.
Dwarf barbarian.
But I sort of stood and shouted across everyone, because I was at the other end of the table.
Yeah.
Facing Addison near enough, and I lost it. And I just remember, because... there was quite a big group of us in your campaign at that time, so there's like 10 pairs of eyes looking at me.
Yeah,
like, could you not make this scene right now, because we all feel super uncomfortable.
Yeah, I think we took a break, didn't we, after that, and then we just moved on. But yeah, so would you say that the social aspect is, like, your favourite part of the hobby?
I think so. Like, initially, like, meeting everyone and getting to know them. But then it was like, once you've fallen in love with, like, the hobby and your friends around you, because that's what it was, really. I like spending time with those people, and I'd look forward every week to going and spending time with those people. In character, out of character, it was just nice to be around those people.
Yeah, definitely. Like,
and I suppose, like, in terms of the game, I've been very fortunate to come into it and have you be my DM as someone that makes me feel very comfortable and safe.
I do try that for all my players, but obviously you being my wife, I do have a bit of a bias towards making sure that you're happy.
And I'm sure I've got a bias in... like,
my DM style. I'm
yeah,
guessing. Yeah,
and, like, yeah, it's my enjoyment of your DM style, because it's you.
Well, you've always known me as a creative as well, because you've always known me as, like, a writer and a poet and stuff like that. So the fact that you saw me get to do that again, because I remember you saying to me once that you were quite sad that I didn't do that anymore at one point when we first moved back to home, because I'd go to, like, poetry nights and then I think you've mentioned it before that, like, that was, like, D&D was now the new poetry night, I guess, or something like that.
Yeah, it's exactly that, because it was sort of like, for you, one day you just stopped writing poetry. And I can't remember the last time I saw you pick up a pen and write in that fashion. I suppose because you've got a lot going on, and yeah, like, D&D is your creative outlet now. Because you're a storyteller. That's your style. So for people that obviously don't know Addison, have never played in any of these games, he's very character driven. He very much likes to get to know his players' characters and their stories and weave them into the narrative that he, like, tells for us all. And I like that, but I also like what Troy does. Troy is very, like, environment focused. Like, his world tells his story, and his world building is so outrageously good.
Yeah.
He puts a lot of time and effort. It's so blatant that he puts a lot of time into the creation of the world that you're in, and he lets that be the guiding factor.
No, yeah.
Am I right?
No, I get that. That's perfectly fine. Like, Troy's very, like, Troy's worlds were, like, insane. Like, whereas I'm like, oh, I like this bit of your character backstory. I'm going to take that and run with it for a bit. As you've seen recently in in our campaign that we play at the moment.
Yeah.
Like, I keep finding little bits of people's stories and bringing them in, like, to, like, play with them and somewhat torment them, I guess. Like,
yeah, like the main bulk of the thing that we're doing right now in the campaign we're playing in is focused around one person's backstory.
Yeah, because for those of you who don't know, someone gave me like a blank slate. Like someone did a Taliesin Jaffe, for those people who know about Molly Mock in season 2, and he was like, "Oh, I want to play a character that's got amnesia." And I was like, "Do you want to?" He was like, "No, you can make that up. You tell me what he did." And I was like, "Ho!" I'm rubbing my little greedy mitts together, and now they're basically trying to save the world from
Vecna.
Yeah, Vecna in his past and everything.
It's wild.
It's wild. It's madness. You've been everywhere. You've been to the astral sea. You've been to the astral plane. You've freed a genie from a curse. You're now trying to get the favour of the blood hunters. You've freed ancient wizards and sorcerers and stuff. It's been pretty fun. Do you think, or like? Yeah,
no. Sorry, I was like off in my own world then, thinking about all the cool things that we've done.
What's your let's tap into that then as you're thinking about it. What's your favourite D&D memory ever? And it doesn't have to be from the campaign that we're doing now. It could be from the old campaign. Could be for Troy's campaign. Like, what's your favourite?
I'm gonna put it out there. I think most of my favourite D&D moments, like from when we played, are probably all involve Troy.
Yeah.
I don't genuinely know if I'd have ever gotten as comfortable RPing as I am, and I'm still like not the most comfortable with it, but I don't think I'd have gotten to this stage without Troy. I feel like Troy's been my bro getting into this hobby.
Yeah. He does make like awesome characters as well. All of his characters are fucking sick. Like,
it's because I loved Troy's character in our last campaign so much. His Turtle Toke.
Yeah. His stoner turtle.
And like Toke and Dara, like my character, ended up like really good friends. And there was this moment where have you spoken about Found and Spud before on the pod?
Yeah, I spoke about it with Michelle, because I talked about the fact that she
draws them for us.
Yeah.
So Addison incorporated Found and Spud into that campaign for me, really. And we imagined Spud to be this wild magic sorcerer, and he would just turn up. And he just turn up one day at this place where we were staying in the kitchen. But the last time we saw Spud, he was a baby.
He was a toddler, wasn't he?
Yeah. And Dara and Toke open, like, or the hatch opens, and Dara and Toke looked at Spud and were a bit like, that's not right. He was this, like, what was he, like 17, 18-year-old?
He looked about 17 years old, yeah, like, to you guys, but remember he's a furbolg, so he ages a bit, like...
Yeah, and Dara and Toke looked at each other and were like, want to stick a pin in that?
Yeah.
Because we had all sorts of other crazy shit going on.
You literally just shut the door on him, didn't you? Because the chef like went up to you and was like, "Yeah, there's this strange guy in the kitchen with like green hair and
frying up potatoes and putting cheese on them."
Yeah.
And I remember Troy and I looking at each other and Toke going, "Okay, we're gonna put a pin in that. We're gonna come back to that later." At some point. Yeah. And just walking away.
Yeah, Spud basically invented cheesy chips in Taldora, yeah, but that was hilarious, because you were just like, both of you were like, what do we do? Like.
And Troy and I had a beautifully awkward moment a couple of weekends ago, didn't we?
Yeah.
So, Troy and I's characters in the campaign we're playing currently are somewhat romantically involved. And there was a beautifully awkward moment of Troy's character Zafir trying to initiate bedroom activity. And it was wonderful. He was so like, adorably awkward about it.
Yeah. D&D, the one hobby where you get to watch your wife like basically have an affair with your friends. But no, I think because we've not actually had the opportunity to play together. When we've played together, I can count it on one hand. We played together at Aaron's.
Yeah.
We've played together for Paul's one shot.
Yeah, that short block, that was 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
And we briefly played together in Troy's campaign.
Troy's campaign. Did you not play in Rachel's one as well?
And in Rachel's short block as well.
Yeah. And Strad for Leon.
That was stopped by
the vid.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've really not had that much chance to play together at all.
No. What do you think when playing like D&D with me?
Addison also creates really obnoxious characters. Don't look at me like that. They're obnoxious. Like I love Kindling. Addison's fire genasi wizard. He's so brilliant, but he's the smartest person in the room. Which, for those of us that know Addison really well, Addison is also always the smartest person in the room, in Addison's opinion.
Well, way to chop me down like that. Like, who's? Because I know my favourite character of yours. Like, I know my favourite character that you've ever made. What's your favourite character of mine that you've had the opportunity to play with? Like, either because you like their personality or you thought they were just like really cool and funny.
I do love Kindling. I did really like Red, your character from Troy's campaign, and I think that would have been fun if we'd have been able to carry on playing Kendra and Red at that time.
Yeah.
I always forget about her.
Yeah.
But she was pretty awesome. She was my monk, my human monk.
Because monks are awesome.
Monks are awesome. I find monking really hard, though.
True. That makes sense.
I'm a spellcaster.
Yeah. You are definitely... I think my favourite character that you've ever played is Dara, but followed closely by Gale.
Oh, Gale's cool.
I really like Gale. So Gale is Jen's Tabaxi rogue inquisitor, who she played in Strad, and she played in the tournament that we did once, and that was fun because like I just like the dynamic between our characters, and I like Gale as well. The fact that she didn't really care about anything. You played her so aloof, like.
Yeah, I think I tried to make her as cat-like as possible.
Yeah, you played her as like so aloof and so like.
And I hated your character from that campaign. I hated Bolly.
You leave Bolly alone.
Oh,
Unless you and Leon now.
He's terrible.
He's not terrible.
He's put on this horrendous shrill voice for him and everything.
He's just a little dumpling patat. That's all he is. He was a little gnome.
Yeah, I think you always feel an affinity for your first character. Like, Dara's very special.
Yeah.
Because she was the first character I ever played, and played her for quite a long time.
Yeah. Your first experience was almost like a year-long campaign. Really.
Yeah. But in the same respect, the character I play now...
Clemency Cheeseman, Ginger Bard Extraordinaire.
I love her so much, and I think because I'm still... not very good at creating my characters and knowing what to do to create my characters, but I put a lot of work into Clem's backstory. That was all me. I went away and thought about that myself.
That was beautiful. Like you watching you do that and like get really excited when you went, oh, that's a really cool idea, and like incorporating that. I thought that was really cool, and being able to play those characters that you made as well, like your Clem's dad, because for the first time ever we don't have an orphan. Like, she has... Oh,
yeah, there's nothing particularly tragic about Clem, is there, really?
She just left.
She comes from a really happy family. She just didn't want to be married off.
Yeah, and just was
bargained
bored.
for her life, like, to go and explore before she, did whatever.
Yeah. So that was it. And it's pretty fun. Like, and watching you play her... Like, you go pretty Sasha Fierce when you play Clem as well. Like, Dara was, like, shy... Kendra was quiet, like Gale was aloof, but with Clem, I feel as though like, wow, the claws are out. Like,
oh, do you think she's just sassy?
She is sassy as hell. Like,
she does sit and like cunt people out under her breath all the time, but under her breath so that everyone can hear her.
Yeah, like you do that thing of like, well, that's a great idea, isn't it?
Brilliant.
Oh, I said that out loud.
And poor Luke bears the brunt of it all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't ever want him to think for a minute that it's a personal attack. Like, if you're listening, I'm not personally gunning for you. But you seem to make these characters that my characters would just naturally tell them to shut up all the time because they're being an idiot.
It is true.
You don't know things. Shut up.
That's so funny.
But they're all so sweet.
Yeah.
Like,
they mean well.
Yeah, they're a bit like you.
Oh wow! Wow! I got done over again. It wasn't even. Invite you. I really want to do this episode with you, darling. Would you come and do an episode of the podcast with me? Yeah, if you just get to mug me off every 20 seconds.
No, I love you so much, but it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Addison is so smart for someone that says so many like really silly things, and you just look at him like, are you sure? Shut up. Luke makes characters like that where they're so sweet and they're so well-meaning, but they're a bit clueless.
Mm.
And you shut up, like, for 2 minutes.
Just
whilst the rest of us work out what's going on.
Don't hurt yourself, honey. The adults are talking pretty much. Like, no, yeah, I understand that, and I think it does make me giggle. Like,
I love it. It's like Pabu.
Oh, Pabu
was so brilliantly dim.
Yeah.
Trying to write that letter.
Oh, yeah. He had to so for context, Pabu basically had to write a letter challenging or replying to a challenge to a duel.
Yeah.
And like there's like loads of customs and everything to it. And basically Clem
was trying to
do it for him, weren't you? Like, oh, this is what we need to do. And then
how was Zeph included in that? Did he ask Zeph to do it initially, to write it? Bearing in mind
Zeph can't see.
Yeah. Zeph has like blind sight.
Yeah.
Had blind sight. He can see now.
Yep.
But yeah, it was because we were down here at the time, weren't we? You were playing at your desk and I was sat on the sofa.
Yeah.
And I genuinely had stood up and was pacing, had my head in my hands like, this is giving me a fucking headache and how do I make it stop?
The thing was, it was like, oh my god, I think she's actually going to explode. Like, I'm not sure she's okay.
Not only was, because it was so like spot on. Clem would have been so agitated by it.
Yeah.
But I was also personally so agitated by it that I just got to a point where I couldn't. Like, how are we still doing this? How have we not resolved this? Why will no one shut up long enough for me to help them? So I give up. You guys are stupid. But I don't know. I have so much fun playing D&D. And when the pandemic first hit and you first started using
Discord,
like the Loom first became a thing, I found it hard to interact with, and I guess I got to a point where I guess I'd started resenting it again. Yeah,
because it was you used words like it was too much effort and there was too many things in the way.
And at the time when you were teaching from home as well, and I was furloughed, I wasn't able to go to work. I felt very trapped in our home.
Yeah.
So I'd sit here all week and have to be quiet in our home because Addison was teaching here, and at the time he was using the room that had the one TV in our house in it.
Yeah.
So I couldn't do anything. I felt super trapped. And then for him to be playing D&D for 4 hours on a Sunday, where I also felt like I couldn't make any noise and I couldn't interact with anyone because I wasn't involved. And it's not like I can go anywhere else.
Yeah.
And I found that really hard. Everyone's found this pandemic hard. I'm not going to sit here and pretend I'm the only one that struggled. No,
but it was a struggle we both had. Like, I couldn't see an issue because of the fact that I was so deep in it and, like, I was struggling with like, well, this is the way things are now. Like, I'd kind of used that as a crutch when I should have been a bit more understanding. Like, I know that.
Yeah. I just felt I can't watch the TV. If I had the TV on, Addison would be like, oh, it's too loud. I'm like, I can barely fucking hear it, so how is it too loud to you?
Yeah,
Like, I'm just here, I'm just trapped here.
And that was why I was trying to get you to play it again. Like, it was almost like the same cycle we'd been in before.
Yeah.
So
where I wasn't in a very good place, where I couldn't work.
Yeah.
Like,
so I was like, play, it'll be fine. And
so
then
when that campaign sort of ended and you had to, like...
restart, soft reboot,
Yeah. And I was like, okay, I'll come and have a crack. And it's been hard to adjust to not being able to see our friends.
Yeah, we're going to do a bit of a session this week, aren't we? I'm going to post an announcement tomorrow saying that we might start a bit earlier to do a bit of a drop-in. See if there's anything they want to change about, like, do you want to use cameras and stuff like that? Because...
although I don't think our friends should be subjected to the way I look on a Sunday when we play.
Well, it might encourage us to get dressed.
Probably not.
Right.
I'm pretty sure all our friends have been here when I've been in my pyjamas.
Yeah. It's not... It is what it is. Like... But you are right, we do need to see if there's anything we can change to make it, because we're like this for a while now, aren't we? We've been like this for a while, we're probably like this for a while longer. And if the club survives, as we don't know, like, it is odd. But yeah. So, I think I've only got really one other question for you, because like, we've talked about like how it's affected our relationship. We've talked about how it's affected our relationship and like what's happened to us and what you now like about it. Now that I've kind of like forced you into it, I'm sorry about that, sweetheart. But one of the things I do want to talk about is something that I've seen you have to do, like, because you used to be like one of like the popular girls, I would say. Like, you used to be friends with like the popular girls, like. At school.
Oh, I know what you're about to say.
So how do you now explain to people what you do? So how do you, bearing in mind you were that like one of the girls, like, and now how do you explain that as a 28-year-old woman what you do on a Sunday to people?
With great difficulty.
That is it. Always.
Because you've watched me tried to explain it to like my best friend Amy.
Yeah, your parents as well. Trying to explain it to your parents. Stephen, your brother.
Yeah, my brother's brilliantly dim anyway.
Yeah.
He's my favourite. But my dad just doesn't get it. My dad genuinely thinks that we are oddballs. Like, he thinks we're proper weirdos.
Yeah, and he thinks, because he thought for a long time that I was actually putting outfitters on. Like, I know for a fact that's what he thought.
Oh no, he didn't. That was a joke at work. That was genuinely a joke between the management at work.
Oh wow.
who all got it. That was so like one of my old bosses who got it, and they had me one day like try and explain it to him, or I said something about it once. And I initially thought that I needed to explain it to him, and they were like, I know what it is. Like, bearing in mind they were all a lot older than us as well. Mm. So I suppose they'd been around for like the satanic panic that was all around in like the 80s or whatever.
Jesus, yeah.
But they enjoyed watching me squirm trying to explain it to him and not really know how. Even now, if someone... So, I think that the most recent example of it is trying to explain it to my personal trainer.
Yeah.
Like when I was seeing Jack every week and trying to tell him that basically the enjoyment I got out of my week was seeing Jack and playing D&D. Everything else was just...
Bleh.
Nah.
Yeah.
It's grey. But how do you tell people that you go somewhere and pretend to be someone else? Which is essentially what we do.
Yeah, it is really, like, I have the same thing at work. Like, I work in a school and, like, trying to explain it to other teachers. Like, when I ran the club, my God, like, trying to explain what I did at the D&D club to other teachers was insane. And bearing in mind, I had so many kids going to it. Like, it was, like, one of the most popular clubs across the year groups. Like, they'd come in and and see and look and like try and understand what was going on, and it was hard work. Like and they were seeing it like physically.
Yeah.
So I can imagine what it would be like trying to explain to somebody who has no point of reference.
Yeah.
Like we can make reference to video games, but that's about it.
But yeah, like I genuinely have had friends that I've told who have been like, "Oh, are you those weirdos that go to places like dressed up?" And I'm a bit like, "Oh, well, yeah."
We could be.
We could be those people.
We could be those people. We're not yet.
You've been that person. Like,
oh yeah, I went.
You and Callum went in cosplay to
Comic-Con.
and Paige and Troy were also in cosplay when we met them.
Yeah.
Because her cosplay was the best thing ever.
Yeah. She was
Amethyst from Steven Universe.
Yeah, which suited her to a T.
Yeah. That's the cutest thing I've ever seen. It was the best.
But yeah, that's... I think one more question, then we'll do the deck of many questions, and we'll sign off, because I've kept you long enough. We'll have dinner, and we'll return to our romantic evening.
Of sitting on the sofa.
Sitting on the sofa. Like spuds. Yeah, so... some people have like a major issue when couples play together, like, and this is, I've never known it like in person or in our friendship group, but like Reddit and Twitter and like people have like major issues with people playing together, like if they're a couple. Like, what do you think about that? Like, do you think it's a good idea for couples to play together? Do you recommend couples playing together?
I don't know. I'm not sure I have an opinion on that. I don't know. Because we play together.
Mm-hmm.
You DM and I play. We've played together in other people's campaigns. You are the reason I got into the hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose we've got other friends that play with their significant others. So Paige and Troy, Joe and Leon.
Yeah.
So no. What was your question? Like,
what do you think about people who have an issue with couples playing together? Do you recommend couples playing together?
I don't think it's an issue, as long as... And I will hold my hands up. I've brought outside issues to the table. I've come to the table angry at you for whatever reason, and it's reflected in the way I played. I try not to do that. I've made a really conscious effort not to do that. But if that's a constant thing at your table, then yeah, I can see why there's an issue.
Yeah.
But if there's nothing untoward, there's no reason for there to be an issue. I don't know why people would make an issue of it.
Yeah.
Because people are in a relationship. Like, look at the cast of Critical Role.
Yeah.
You have two married couples.
Yeah.
Playing in that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. I can't see why people would make an unnecessary issue of it.
Well, yeah, I get that. Like, I just thought it was an interesting premise, considering that the reason why I've brought you on is to talk about what it's like being in a relationship and playing D&D together and, like, having your significant other.
I can see it. As I say, like, I can see why it would make people feel uncomfortable, but that's only if that couple's making a scene.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I've shouted at you across our table.
Yeah.
And people have gone, "Oh my god, don't have a domestic."
Yeah.
And the likelihood of it is that we're not going to, but I'm angry at you in the moment. So yeah. I'm gonna express that. And I'm really sorry that I've made all our friends feel uncomfortable because I've yelled at you in that way. But I'm going to sit down and shut the fuck up afterwards. Yeah,
it is true. That is true. Like,
But if I was doing that every week at our table, yeah, I could see why our friends would think that was an issue and why they'd want me to be away from the table.
Yeah. Like, definitely. Like, if it became like just another soundboard for your domestics, like.
But I don't think we do that. I think that's probably one of the only times we've ever done that.
Yeah, I think we make comments about each other, just like banter, but that's about it. Like, we're never actually mean to each other.
Yeah, I tell Addison he makes dick DM choices all the time.
Yeah.
I accuse him of cheating the system a lot.
Because it's not going her way.
Because I'm a brat. I don't like losing. Can't stand it.
You are funny.
Don't know. You asked me a question earlier about my favourite, like, D&D memory.
Yeah.
I'm going, like, something completely, like, not in game, not in character. My player's handbook was a gift to me from Addison.
Mm.
And he wrote something really, really nice in the front of it. And that's like one of my favourite things that I have D&D wise.
Oh, really?
I don't read my PHP very often. I don't need to. I ask you the questions I got.
Yeah.
But it's nice to know that I have that. And quite often when we play, I get it out and I read what you wrote to me in it. Because it's really lovely. Like, you tried to encourage me to get into it, and you bought me this like lovely gift and wrote something like really lovely in it. Sound like a broken record. Like, find a new word. But it's really special to me.
Oh, that makes me so happy, because I remember buying that and being like, this goes one of two ways.
She's either going to club me to death with it.
Yeah. Or it goes, and it seems...
And I probably thought about it at first.
Yeah. I think you didn't read what was inside it for a while.
I wouldn't say a while. It weren't like it went for months sat on our shelves. But I probably opened it and didn't think to look inside it.
Yeah.
I opened it, probably opened other things. I was a bit like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
Before I decided to open it, I was like, oh, that's really sweet. Because I'd had it for quite a while still before I decided I was going to play.
Yeah.
Like, you bought that with foresight.
Mm-hmm. I can do
like,
that sometimes.
You knew you were going to wear me down eventually.
Yeah. And yeah, that's how our story goes, isn't it? We got married. I pretty much forced you into playing D&D, and now it's something we love.
But it wasn't you.
Oh, that's true. It wasn't me.
You weren't the turning point.
No, Paige, wherever you are.
Whenever you are.
Whenever you are, whoever you are. Jen always takes the mick out of me when I say that as well. But yeah, no, but it is lovely having you around and like watching. Like I really get enjoyment out of seeing your face and like how like excited you can be when I do things, and when I get like really good feedback from you. Like sometimes I don't feel like I'm doing that well, but like I look at you and you're like, and I'm like, oh no, I must be impressive then, because you'd tell me if I was rubbish, like, and not obviously meanly, but you would say like, oh, was everything okay? Like you weren't yourself today. You've said that a couple of times.
Yeah.
Like, but when I see you and you're like engrossed and like,
I know that it makes you excited. It makes you happy to see me get happy. Like, even for things such as if one of my spells land.
Yeah.
Like, I had this huge thing with Dara, where whenever Dara cast Inflict Wounds, it did worked. Fuck all.
It never worked.
And there was this one time,
it
hit.
And it hit like a truck, didn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was good.
And that's another highlight.
Yeah, like...
Because I was so gassed. Because I couldn't understand why such a simple spell, really. And I couldn't get it to land as a motherfucker wielding an oath bow.
Yeah. And like, so yeah, Jen had a thing where I gave... Again, I kind of cheated for her.
He broke the system for me. He gave my cleric an oath bow.
I gave the cleric an oath bow, and I also gave her a thing that allowed her to cast touch spells for the first increment of her bow's range, and that was it. So it could only go so far, but it's still quite far for a bow.
Yeah, basically, you were so sweet facilitating that, because creating Dara,
you just wanted.
I ummed a lot about whether to play a ranger or a cleric.
Yeah, and nobody wants to play ranger because they're rubbish. But...
Yeah, they are poo. I've now done it.
Yeah.
In like short games, haven't I?
Yeah.
And they're poo. It's not my favourite. No disrespect for people that, because there are obviously people out there that love the ranger.
And speaking of that, our little furry animal companion has decided to
get in the way,
and with that, I'll give him a kiss, and we will head into the deck of many questions, which is Jen is actually probably not going to have that many. No disrespect, but because she's only ever played, a lot of these got submitted because we had a lot of people who DM'd on. So I'm going to find one for you because I love you. I want you to. So I would love for you to tell me what your favourite race is and what your favourite class is. That's your deck of many questions question today, sweetheart.
Race and class.
Favourite race, favourite class.
I'm an elf person. Elf, half elf.
You wanted to play Eladrin, didn't you?
I do have a thing where I think my next character might be an Eladrin, but Addison's thing is I like elfy characters, and I should probably not play elfy characters as much. Like, Dara was a wood elf, Clem's a half elf,
yeah.
But I do have a thing where I want to play an Eladrin, because Addison's Eladrin character was really cool, and I didn't actually see you play him all that much.
No, you just heard stories about him, and
yeah.
Like you saw, I told you things, yeah. Like, and I think you saw like the notebook I kept where I like stuck pictures in and stuff, which look cool because they can like change, can't they, based on seasons and their mood.
And I think that's cool.
What's your favourite class then?
Probably Bard. Probably Bard because you hate it so much.
I love that. I love what you hate.
So let's be honest. Like my character Clemency, she's awesome.
Yeah.
But she is a law bard. Clemency can do fucking anything she wants, basically.
Yeah.
With little to no problems.
As
long as the dice are playing somewhat nicely, Clem doesn't have any problems with anything.
Yeah.
She's proficient in a lot of things.
It's got
expertise in quite a few others.
Yeah.
And I can see why that's really, really like problematic for you.
Yeah, I just hate Bard.
Hates it. Every time like we level up or whatever and I try and work out what it is I can do, I still struggle with things like that. There are numbers and like they're not my strong suit. Addison's like, I fucking hate that you can do all of this.
Yeah.
Take your bullshit elsewhere.
No, it is funny and it is interesting to watch you like oh, I'll do it. And if it's like, oh, can Clem do that? And you just look at your sheet and go, well, I'm going to try because I've got +7 even though I'm not proficient. Like, what? What? It is interesting to watch you. Because you've got a luck stone as well, haven't you?
Yeah.
Which is annoying.
But on top of all the shit that I can do, I get an extra +1 to things.
Yeah, it is interesting to watch you. So yeah, that has been today's episode about being married to a dungeon master, dating your DM, loving across the table, and yeah, thanks Jen for doing this weird interview with me in our front room, because that's where we are. We're literally using the interview function of my microphone to run this interview, with making sure the cat doesn't do anything stupid. And yeah, I think it's been really cool listening to like because we talk about D&D, but we never like go like deep into it because like we just expect that the other person knows. But like I didn't know how much you loved your PHB, and like that's made me really happy. So thank you for that. But yeah, if you want to catch us, you can catch us on social media, on Instagram, on Twitter. You can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Pocket Casts, anywhere where you can find a good podcast for your devices. You can also catch me on Mondays with my friend Ben over at Flickering Torch playing Blades in the Dark Red Herrings at the moment. But after that, we are going to be playing Mecha Hack Desperate Alliance with me GMing, which is going to be sick as hell because I can finally get in the robot Shinji and mess some stuff up. So we hope that you've enjoyed today. It's been fun. Hopefully there won't be much editing to do on this one. And yeah, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, I hope you're safe, hope you're well, and I hope to see you again soon. See you later. Bye.
Bye.
I was like, you just waved.